You're listening to LibraryCast, your library podcast with me, Jeremy Thompson-Smith, Somerset Libraries Outreach Officer for the Mendips, bringing to you Libraries from Home. On this week's LibraryCast, we welcome Kirsty Jenssen, Service Manager for the Royal Voluntary Service. Kirsty, welcome to this week's LibraryCast. Tell us a little bit about the Somerset Home Library Service and its story.
Well, Somerset Home Library Service is very, very special because we have people who are lovers of books that have thoroughly enjoyed them all of their life. But life has got a little bit harder now and it's difficult to get to the library. It might be a transport issue. It might be because they're a carer. Or it could be that they're housebound or have a long-term illness. You know, life just gets harder, but your love of books does not change. You know, your body may be failing you, your circumstances may be challenging, but there is nothing that beats reading a book to take you to another world. And so what the Home Library Service does is enables people to still receive books that they enjoy and to also spend time with a volunteer. So in Somerset, we're really, really fortunate. We have about 150 volunteers across the whole county. It always surprises me that I get to Minehead and I'm still in Somerset. And I think, oh my God, I've got to get to Porlock as well now. So we have the 150 across the whole county and we have around 400 clients across the whole county. So people who still love reading are still able to do that. There is no restrictions on where we will go. I mean, historically, we have obviously gone to people's individual homes. We go to residential homes, nursing homes. We have a fantastic volunteer that supports Wincanton Community Hospital and goes into there.
So tell us a bit about Kirsty Jenssen's story. How long have you been working as the service manager for the Royal Voluntary Service?
Well, I've been with the Home Library Service now for 7 years, which is quite scary because it seems to have gone past incredibly quickly. And when I originally started, it was a much smaller service and I was working a lot less hours on it. So, you know, it's been fantastic that the role has developed. One of the things I'm most proud of is the aspect of befriending that we've developed within the service. So it's very much befriending with books. So historically, our volunteers will deliver those books, but what they will do is sit down and have a chat and a conversation. Older people generally lose a little bit of confidence and they might be a bit cautious about doing something, and actually a friend and some encouragement from a volunteer can make a real difference. So that's something I'm really proud of.
So I was always wondering what it's like to be a volunteer for the Royal Voluntary Service, for Somerset Libraries Home Lending Service. So I thought I'd ask a volunteer for their experiences. I caught up with Rob Cowan, RVS volunteer for Somerset.
Hi, I'm Rob. I'm a volunteer with the RVS and I have been now, I think, for about getting on for 2 years. I was recruited sort of accidentally, really, through seeing a notice in the library. I think some of the things that tweaked my interest were the fact that I've been a lifelong reader and I love books. And it occurred to me that if I was ever housebound or couldn't get out and I was isolated, that one of the things I would miss enormously is access to books, access to literature. And this seemed like an opportunity where I could perhaps help somebody with that and sort of link up my own love of reading with other people's needs to connect or reconnect with reading in their home as their situations had changed. I went through the application process. After a while, I was contacted by Kirsty, who's a service manager for RVS and has been a great help and support to me throughout the process. And to cut a long story short, I went through a very well-organised induction, various bits of training, which included adult safeguarding, moving and handling, and various other things, and then started to, once I was approved and I had all my necessary checks and so on, I started to pick up a few readers of my own. And it has actually been great. I've enjoyed it enormously and still do enjoy it. I have found that I've been able exactly to fulfill what I'd hoped, which is to help people connect to reading who, for all sorts of reasons, are having trouble in doing that. The two readers I work with at the moment, as it happens, are both in care homes. So that means that it's impossible to actually get in to see them at the moment, but they're both in different situations. One is partially sighted. So with her, we depend entirely on using talking books in the form of CDs, which she listens to and devours. She's a great reader and has a great breadth of things that she enjoys. That can impose some limitations because not everything that's available in book form is available in talking book form. So we have to be imaginative a bit about that. And because her sight is so poor, she can't use a computer, for instance, or a tablet, which means that we're very dependent on the supply of CDs. That works pretty well. And what's interesting is over time is I think her tastes have changed from enormous breadth where she began to sort of now deciding she's got some particular favourites, which again presents challenges in terms of digging them out. But of course, the library service means that you can actually dig things out from right across the southwest, which is enormously helpful. And my other reader, her sight is perfectly good, so she reads books and is really interested in finding a wider selection of books to read, really, which she's enjoyed enormously. You know, the service isn't just about books. I mean, it is, you know, it's ostensibly about books, but actually the service is very much about befriending, and it's about getting to know people and making a connection.
For those that might be interested in offering their services to volunteer for the Somerset Home Lending Service, what advice, what suggestions can you give those that are thinking about joining the service?
Oh, I think explore it, frankly. It's great fun. The thing about it is you can manage your own time. You don't have deadlines imposed on you or this and that you have to do by, you know, Wednesday or Friday or whatever. And it's incredibly rewarding. I've formed really great relationships with people who I'd never met, who had never met me, and I've got a huge amount back from it. It's not just me going and, you know, giving something. It's very much a two-way relationship, and getting to know those people through the process has been an absolute privilege, and one that I've enjoyed and continue to enjoy enormously.
So join with Kirsty Jenssen from the RVS Home Lending Service, and it's good news to a certain extent, Kirsty, isn't it? We are beginning to open our libraries again. We've got Taunton Library that is opened, and we also have Frome, Bridgewater, Yeovil and Minehead that are opening. Tell us a little bit about how this is affecting the RVS service and what we can look forward to in the immediate future.
Well, the great news about libraries opening is that gives us the opportunity to begin the home library service again. We're obviously taking a cautious approach because a lot of our clients are in the most vulnerable group, and we want to make sure we get this right and protect our volunteers and protect our clients. So we ran a trial at Taunton a couple of weeks back, whereby our volunteers are doing doorstep deliveries, and that was successful. And now we have the opportunity to work with the library service as libraries open, and we intend to do our first drops of books out of Frome next week, and thereafter at Minehead and Bridgewater and Yeovil the following week.
That's great news. And will this be an order and collect, in the sense that certain style of books, genres of books will be offered?
what we're doing is consulting with our readers, finding out what they enjoy reading and making sure we get the format right. And then we share that with the library service, and they're choosing 3 books for each of the clients. Those books are then put in a sealed bag, left for 72 hours, and then our volunteers come in and collect those books with various precautions around obviously sanitizing hands and gloves. And then the books are delivered and left at the doorstep of that client, or in a safe place outside that they can collect the books as well. And at the moment, we're not returning books. We have been recruiting volunteers during lockdown via Zoom and such other interesting things. So we want to make sure that we can include everybody. Clearly, we are focusing initially on our existing clients, but where we have capacity, we want to bring new people in as soon as possible, because we know that lockdown has affected people's mental health. And certainly for older people, it can be a real lifeline to open a book and take you to another world. And we want to make sure where we can that we're doing that for people.
So there may be individuals listening to LibraryCast. There are also maybe family members that know, oh, I know just the person that would really value this particular service. Where can we find out more for those members of our community that might like to consider joining the RVS Somerset Home Lending Service?
There's several ways of doing it. The easiest way is probably to give me a phone call. My telephone number is 07920 250 834. Or alternatively, they can email me at Kirsty with a Y .Jenssen JENSSEN at royalvoluntaryservice.org.uk, or alternatively ask at your local library. Well, they will all know of the Royal Voluntary Service and the Home Library Service, and they'll refer straight to me anyway.
What happens from there? A form is filled in. What's the application process?
We have an initial contact. I will then send out an application pack to the volunteer, along with some further information about the charity and our responsibilities as a charity, and their responsibilities if they choose to sign up as a volunteer. Within that application pack, we ask for 2 references. And during lockdown, we've taken up both those references. And also we do a DBS application as well. Fortunately, times have moved on, and DBSs are super easy now and can be done online. So that makes it easier. That application form is completed. The application is inputted and the DBS and references taken out. I'll have a chat with the volunteer over the phone, just expanding about what the service is and what we are looking to provide. And then during lockdown, we've been doing inductions over Zoom, which has been really interesting and different, but actually quite lovely, because it's given us an opportunity to get several new volunteers together and do the induction all together, which has been really, really lovely.
I think there's been some good news. Maybe you can give more detail to the news that I've heard. Apparently, since we last spoke, for volunteers that are over 70, it's now possible for them to continue to do their volunteering. Can you give us a bit more detail on that breaking news?
Yes. Well, no, I was thrilled that that information had changed recently with changes from the government guidelines. Obviously, we still have a responsibility to our volunteers that are over 70, and certainly we will be doing individual risk assessments where appropriate if people have underlying health conditions. So we can make sure that we're protecting our volunteers, but also enabling people who want to volunteer to be able to do that.
Do you envisage the service being rolled out across all the libraries when they open across Somerset again, or will you be concentrating on just some selection of libraries within Somerset?
It's not yet been agreed, but in the main, we want to focus on opening in line with the libraries.
So it's been hopeful, isn't it, from the first time we spoke where there was no libraries open to now where they are beginning to open and you're actually delivering books. It does give a sense of realistic optimism, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's just wonderful. And I've had some really good feedback and some lovely comments from clients who were so delighted to have their books. Just, you know, it made their day. And to be honest with you, it made a lot of the volunteers' days. In fact, one of them, she was crying. She said, but it's happy tears because it was so lovely to see them. So, yes, I think for everybody, volunteers and clients, it's given everyone a real lift.
I suspect as Somerset Libraries begin to open over the next few weeks, there'll be librarians with those happy tears as we welcome our readers back to our libraries in a safe way. And finally, I asked Kirsty Jenssen to share with us one of her own personal highlights working for the Royal Voluntary Service during the last 7 years.
There is one that does stand out to me, and it was early on in my career with Royal Voluntary Service and the Home Library Service. Was I went with one of our long-standing volunteers to visit a client, and this lady was in her 90s and she was completely housebound, and I was chatting with her, and she had always lived in this village. She had lived in a prefab during wartime. She had worked in the canteen at the bomb factory just down the road where she'd met her husband. And the house that she was in, she had brought up her 2 children in. And she was housebound, but she said, my books are a lifeline. And I remember her saying this to me. She said, they take me to a world I can't get to anymore. That really encompasses a lot of the individuals that we visit. And that's how I know what a difference it makes and what an improvement it can make on mental health, in making time go by, and in bringing happiness and joy.
So, to get more involved with the Somerset Home Library Service, get in contact with Somerset Libraries, and all of the Somerset Libraries team will give you information as to how you can either become a volunteer for the service or to receive that service of books and audiobooks in your home. You have been listening to LibraryCast, your library podcast from Somerset Libraries, bringing to you Libraries from Home.